federal government also owns an enormous fleet of vehicles, which we're going to replace with clean electric vehicles.
Well, that was President Biden. On Monday, he's discussing possible plans to, upgrade the federal government's entire fleet of automobiles with, some clean cars, electric cars. Well, a person who may be working the system, perhaps in an effort to keep her $24,000 freezer supplied with rows of $94 a gallon ice cream, is Nancy Pelosi. The speaker and her husband, I'm not really sure who yet because it doesn't specify, purchased the right to buy 2,500 shares of Tesla stock at $500 a share, which in itself I think is a pretty interesting segment. But as of today, those Tesla call options that she bought in December, right before this announcement, are valued at over $1 million. Now, keep in mind, this is the same person who decides or helped decides what piece of legislation comes to the House floor that might kind of influence that purchase that the president was talking about. Well, here to break down that and a lot more is the president of Judicial Watch, the author of Republic Under Assault, Tom Fitton. Tom, welcome back.
Hey, good to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I made it clear earlier, I can't figure out this whole GameStop thing. It's a little above my pay grade when it comes to my stock picking abilities and who actually gamed the system. I'm sure I can read up on this more. But I know you and Judicial Watch knows how or who games the political system. This Nancy Pelosi stock purchase right before President Biden announces this, how concerning should this be to us? And what is Judicial Watch doing to look into it?
Well, I mean, generally speaking, members of Congress have the right to buy stocks, and it's disclosed as you highlight. And the question for Nancy Pelosi, is it an insider trade? And other politicians last year, may recall, were investigated for insider trading. And did she have insider information about new policies under the new Biden administration that helped her decide, or helped her and her husband decide in this trade? If it were a Republican, we all know that question would be pursued quite vigorously by the big media and the SEC. But we'll see what happens with Speaker Pelosi. But certainly, the ethics process on the Hill ought to cover this, but we know how that works.
Well, speaking of ethics, Tom, you just wrote an op-ed about the Biden family. And now it's coming out that Frank Biden, Joe Biden's brother, is touting his relationship with President Biden in an Inauguration Day ad for his own law firm. He didn't even wait a day to do this. I mean, we talk a lot about Hunter Biden, but what should people know about Frank Biden and what he is doing?
Well, evidently, he or his firm ran an ad talking about he and his brother. And, obviously they were putting that ad out there not to educate Americans, but to get business for the firm. And it appeared on Inauguration Day. And, the question is, was this the same type of behavior? And it's actually further confirms that we need to investigate similar behavior that was happening during the vice presidency of Joe Biden, and frankly, in the run-up to his candidacy and his campaign, because if you're giving money to the Biden family and that same Biden family is saying, hey, look, I've got this relationship with my brother, Joe Biden, who happens to be the president of the United States, you have questions about bribery. And I know it's uncomfortable for the media to cover this fact, but in that laptop, that Hunter Biden laptop, emails or text messages, he complains about having to give a cut of the money he's getting to his father.
Yeah, I can't believe how tone deaf and stupid it is to put an ad out on the day your brother's getting inaugurated as president. Although seeing the press the way they have been over the last 7 days, I get it now, which is like, okay, they're not going to say anything, so I might as well put the ad out, get some business, and make some money off my brother, who's the president now. Tom, I want to ask you this, though, before we leave with you. We've talked about the cabinet selection. We've gone through a bunch of the analysis of these people. But it's funny, so far, Biden's got pretty much his cabinet getting through with Republican support. So of the folks that are remaining, is there anyone that we should be seriously watching? We talked yesterday, I think it was, about Gina Raimondo, who's up for Commerce Secretary, not really thinking that Huawei is a big problem. I mean, of the folks who are left, is there anybody that we should be watching for? And frankly, should Republicans be fighting back a little? I mean, just a touch, maybe?
Well, I mean, certainly the president doesn't have the mandate for radical extremists in the cabinet. And to a degree, you've got folks who, like Mr. Mayorkas, who was involved in scandal at DHS and was a terribly political figure in the exercise of his law enforcement responsibilities in prior administrations and previously. I don't think we want a figure like that anywhere near DHS. But then you've got the cabinet officials are one thing, but they're basically placeholders for the people underneath them that do the day-to-day decision making. And it's a panoply of radicals that President Biden's trying to get through. So give them his cabinet choices. I would have opposed them more vigorously as a conservative, but the idea that some of these radicals are going to get through at these undersecretary, deputy secretary positions with not much notice from the Republicans or, frankly, the media, I don't think voters should stand for that. And they should let their senators know, are you going to whether they think that the Senate should rubber stamp radicals to be placed in government decision making on climate change, taxes, abortion, immigration, you name it. It's not the cabinet heads that we have to worry about, practically speaking. It's the guys who know what they're doing underneath them that are, basically telling them where to sit and where to look.
Yeah. Well, speaking of radicals, I do want to ask you real quick about Javier Becerra. Many people are calling for him to drop out as HHS secretary because he was the ringleader of a far left resistance movement and has personally led a lawsuit to harass Little Sisters of the Poor, just to name a few things. Do you think that this warrants a call for him to step down, or should we not worry about him, who's under him, as you say? About 30 seconds.
Well, the question is there going to be leadership from the Republican Party to oppose a radical like Becerra? And I don't see it there.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they can stop his nomination from going forward, but there ought to be accountability in the Senate for someone of his political background or policy background, an extremist by any sense, in our political life, going in and running an agency that President Biden wants to touch all of our lives in more aggressive ways.
I agree. These guys, it's a 50-50 Senate. They at least need to put the metal to the pedal and ask these guys the tough questions. So far, it's been a disappointment on the Republican side, but we've got a few to go, and this one in particular should definitely merit a bunch of scrutiny. Tom Fitton, as always, thank you very much.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. The left is hard at work pushing through their big abortion agenda. But we're going to talk to 3 leaders in the pro-life movement about just how aggressive their plan is next. This is the eve of the March for Life. We're going to get to it when we return.